Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. Happy Tuesday night. I've got a very special guest coming on. Should be on in a few minutes. And it's going to be head coach for Atlanta Track Club Elite, Mr. Tom NOHILLY. And it's a very special treat. He's a fellow Queens, New York boy like myself. Went to the same high school. He graduated 10 years before me. He still to this day has, I think, every distance record in the school, cross country and track, with the exception of the 800 meters. Probably the best runner to ever come out of our school, no doubt about it. And one of the best to come out of CHSAA as well, out in New York City. So it's a very special treat to have him on here, and I'm looking forward to it. And we've got he has a lot of coaching experience at a whole bunch of different levels. He's also Wharton trained and certified like I am. So he brings a lot of experience and a lot of perspective and insight towards his coaching. And it's been instrumental as to him developing as a world-class coach. And I'm very, very much grateful to have him on here. For those that don't know, I'm Coach Jason. Okay, I'm also a coach of the last 20 years, and I was a former competitive runner as well, also from New York City. And I started this channel to create a path for coaches and athletes to have access to experienced coaches in a way that's relatable. But also, there are so many athletes who run in college who want to continue to run and just don't have any guidance, don't have any access, don't have any resources or anything like that. I want to help in any way that I possibly can, even giving them basic access to me. So and I've got 500 plus videos on this channel. So whether you're a middle distance runner or distance runner, or if you're a coach and you want to discuss any of them, I give my emails, blackbeltrunningcoach@gmail.com. Okay. People have direct access to me to discuss anything they want on the channel. Okay. Excuse me, I'm just leaning down to get water. Anything they want. And again, it's important, at least in my opinion, to provide this type of resource for athletes. And I've been able to coach high level, super high level athletes, but just because stuff works for them doesn't necessarily mean it works for everybody else. And how do you build that piece of the puzzle? How do you play that chess game? How do you build the rest of those pieces? Okay. Because a lot of folks I've heard saying, well, my workouts work for my top athletes, they can work for you. Well, not necessarily. How do you build up to that point in many steps, right? And this is where the channel, I think, provides value, because it gives you the path to learning a lot more. And the more you learn as an athlete or a coach, the more valuable you're going to be, the more as a competitor and a coach. Okay. And being as a former, I'm taking a look here. Hold on. Tommy's asking me how to get on. Okay. Tommy's asking me how to get on. So, all right. He's working himself to get on. So, it's this type of access that I want you to have. And these are some of the frustrations that coaches and athletes have, right? They don't have a platform to converse with other coaches in a way that's easily accessible. They don't have somebody they could, convert with every day, and so on and so forth. This is why I give my email in my videos. Okay. This is why I do that. This is why I think it's so important. Okay. Because I want people to know that there are people out there who are willing to help them, are willing to take the time to help them. Mentoring coaches, athletes, no matter what it is, there are people out there that are willing to do this. Okay. And we already know, we're not in it for the Coach K money. We don't make that type of money in sport. So, Nick Saban money and all these types of things. We do it for the passion. We do it. And this is, one of the things that you learn as a runner, a middle distance, no matter what. You train for weeks, you train for months, you train for years, for just a few minutes of glory, a few moments of euphoria. And those moments you never forget. You never ever forget them. You never forget some of the relationships that you build through the sport either. Okay, I met some of my closest friends in the world through the sport, my wife through the sport. And I'm very, very grateful the sport, which is why I want to give back to a sport that's been so great to me, right? And absolutely critical, absolutely critical. So, waiting to see if Tommy can, yeah, has any trouble getting on here. And by the way, some credentials on Tommy: 341 for the 1500, 359 for the mile, 747 for 3K, 1340 ish for 5K, 816 for the 3000-meter steeple. Okay. Fourth place in Olympic trials twice, 96 and 2000. I was there in 2000 when he did it. And I watched every step of his race. And it's phenomenal. And having a local guy do the things that so many runners wish they could do is so cool. New York City is not necessarily a hotbed for distance running, right? It's not an area that, and I want to talk to Tommy about this too, because I wanted to ask him. And he coached in New Jersey and New York for over a decade. Now he's head coach of Atlanta Track Club Elite, and he's got access to, his world-class athletes out there as well. And I want to see what the difference is, coaching from New York, coaching in Atlanta. And it's very, very, make sure he can get on. Let me see. Let's see. Okay, sorry about that, gang. So, and this is, this right here is I want people to hear the perspective of a guy who's not only was a former world class athlete, but is a world class coach, and he's relatable to everybody. Some of these folks are not relatable, and this is one of the lessons that I've learned from coaching and also being a longtime martial arts practitioner and instructor is you never stop being a student, right? You never stop learning. Okay. And, because last thing you want to do is get humbled by some people here. And speak of the devil, your very special guest, Tom Nohilly. He's on here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Can you hear
Here
me?
he is. So this is the guest of the hour, folks. Okay. Tom Nohilly, just do a quick recap again. New York City boy, Queens, New York. College Point?
College Point, New York, 126th Street.
26th Street, College Point, New
No,
York.
126th Street.
126th Street.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm from Jackson Heights, College Point. Went to the same high school. Tommy graduated in 84. I graduated in 94. Monsignor McClancy, all boys school. And then he went to the University of Florida. Tommy was NCAA champion of steeple. And then he went to the Reebok Conclave and ran under world-renowned coach Frank Gagliano. And then he co-founded, Empire Elite. Okay, he also worked with Frank Gagliano, coaching New Jersey and New York Track Club for about a decade. Then he founded Empire Elite with training partner and former Olympian John Troutman. They were there for a couple of years, and now Tommy's got the opportunity to be the head coach over at the Atlanta Elite Track Club. But Tommy, welcome, and thanks so much for coming on and taking the time. I have some questions for you. I wanted to give you a formal introduction as well. So, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate this.
No problem, Jason. Thanks. As Crusaders, we gotta, help each other out, stay tight, So
That's right.
I was just looking at a McClancy letter I got a while back, and I couldn't work out the timing, but they had a reunion on, March 24th for 84. And I don't know if you went, but it was 84. It was all the 10 years, 84, 94, 74, 04. So a lot of the fours didn't make this one, but just not good timing for me. You didn't get the letter?
I did not get the why. I don't know if I updated my address. I just moved. So
you gotta update your
one of your
address.
athletes, actually, Allie Wilson, USATF champ in 800, Milrose Games champ. She's from Wallingford, PA. That's where I live now.
Oh, wow.
In the same neighborhood.
Yeah, she's not actually on Atlanta Track Club anymore. She because her current coach, Andrew Bagley, he was here, and they moved on. And so, Allie is actually no longer with the Atlanta Track Club, but she is living in Indiana and training with Andrew there.
All right.
But yeah, but she was here for many years. Got her start here, and yeah, I found that out when I got to know her. Like, as I was moving down here, is that for whatever reason, I mean, she went to school in New Jersey. I didn't know her, but I found out that she was from PA. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's right in my neighborhood.
but
I mean,
where exactly is that in relation to like what's the little closest city or whatever that you
Bedford is
knew?
right next to Swarthmore.
Oh, okay, right,
It's like 5 minutes from Swarthmore. It's like 10 minutes from Villanova.
right. Oh, okay, yeah.
Um,
Out
so
towards
it's
Bryn Mawr then.
yeah, Bryn Mawr. It's right nearby Bryn Mawr.
Mm-hmm.
Bryn
Gotcha.
Mawr's got a big running club over here as well.
Sure, yeah. Bryn Mawr Running Company,
Yep.
the big running store there and has been for many years. Knew a lot of the guys back in the day when I was training and running, from that area, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
They have a pretty good stable of runners.
they do. They do. They've been involved heavily for a long time. And yeah, that whole area is, just a great running community. So
Oh yeah.
it's a good place to be for running.
My man Michael Wilson saying hi to us here.
Oh,
Yeah.
Michael Wilson. Is he still in New York?
Mighty Mike, yeah, he's a principal out in Manhattan.
All
Still do,
right.
and
Good. Hey, Mike. I don't know how you see that, or I'm
I,
not
uh,
that
I
savvy on these.
there's a comment section here. I don't know if you could see it. I see it.
Oh, I
Um,
see it now. I just brought it up. Okay,
Michael
gotcha.
Wilson there, and I think my buddy
I'll stay focused on this, so I'm not going to get involved
That's,
with the chat. I'm not good at
that's cool.
multitasking.
No, that's cool, man. I mean, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I mean, I got
Yeah.
my buddy Mike Hernandez, former Crusader coach, and he
Hmm.
coached Salem, who's over at Empire Elite now.
Zalen is doing great. I knew he would. It just takes time, and development. But he ran 220 for a K
I
last
saw
week,
that.
last Friday. So yeah,
Yeah.
he's in 148, and if he stays with it, if he's able to stay with it, he'll keep improving. John is a great coach and a great system there, and a good bunch of guys to train with. So, if you can make it work, it's a good place to be.
Yeah, and there he is in the comments, Michael Hernandez. There he is.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, well, I mean, in your experience, like, how would you say your coaching philosophies kind of evolved over the years? You've had access to work with a lot of great coaches, and like, have there been mainstays? Have there been changes in your philosophy over the years as you learned more?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think you have to be willing to adapt to what's happening. I mean, there's some fundamental things that you want to stay true to, right? I mean, but I mean, there is methodologies that even in the last couple years that have changed, the way you train, the way you can train, the way you coach, and you have to change also with the athletes and how they evolve, and whether or not you want to agree with what that is. It's the kind of thing that if you don't evolve with it, you'll get left behind. So I learned from some great coaches, and I had the opportunity to be around some great coaches starting at a young age. In the College Boyd Roadrunners, I had an old coach named Mr. O'Sullivan, or John O'Sullivan. We called him Mr. O. He's an old Irish guy, and he was a great influence on me and a great coach as a young kid. At 10 years old, I started running, and he encouraged me and he inspired me. He was a real positive man and a positive influence. And the College Boyd Roadrunners is and was a great club. They started the Queens Half. It used to be the College Point Half.
Oh,
Now
nice.
it's the Queens Half, and had a really big club and a great team back in the day. And we ran in College Point and went to a lot of the cross country meets around the city, and so that's how I got involved. But I had him, and then when I got to McClancy, Coach Jim Carey was there, and he had a tremendous amount of knowledge because he ran at South Carolina, and I was fortunate enough to have him as a high school coach, and he just was really a great influence because he had a lot of knowledge on
Mhm.
training and that, and gives good workouts, and it was a positive influence. And my senior year, we won the city championship for the first time in 23 years. So, and then I actually went to Taft College out in California for 2 years because I always had challenges with academics, and so I went out there, and because I really couldn't get into 4-year school, my scores were low, and my my academic ability was just not ready to be in a 4-year school. So I went there for 2 years, and I had a great coach out there. His name was Craig Johnson, and this guy was just he didn't have a lot of experience, but he was real educated man, and a scientist. And so he really had a great influence on this scientific approach to coaching that influenced me, because he would have graphs and charts about your progression for the season, and have points of training and goal points along the way. And he would lay it out for you, and then he had a real scientific approach about, down to a cellular level, like what you were trying to do. And so, I was able to have him at junior college. And then when I went to Florida, Joe Walker was there as the head coach, and John Webb was the assistant. And Joe Walker, brought a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience as a coach. And John Webb was assistant, and was really good with me because of who I was and how I needed to be kind of directed and motivated. But Joe Walker was a great coach and a great motivator, inspired you in so many ways. And so so like as an athlete, those were some of the people I had as an influence. And moved on post collegiately to Barry Brown, who Barry Brown was around when Frank Shorter and Jack Batchelor and all those guys were in Gainesville training before the 72 games and that. And so he was a training partner of those guys. And he was the first guy that introduced me to real high mileage and linear type of method of training. So along the way, I got a lot of different influences on coaching. And then I at Florida, I was an exercise physiology major, which I kind of just happened to they directed me to that as a major that it might be good for me, and it worked out that it was. It took a lot of hard work, but I learned a tremendous amount about physiology, exercise physiology, sports psychology, coaching. I mean, we took classes in everything: coaching baseball, coaching basketball, the psychology of sport, kinesiology, all those things that at the time I didn't really even realize how much they would help me and influence me as a coach. But most of all, the biggest influence on all of that was Phil and Jim Wharton, who I worked with for basically started working with them in 91, 92. And Phil and I went to school together, ran together, but he didn't really get involved with the therapeutic end of things until about 1990-ish, maybe, through his dad. And then I started working with Phil in 91. And that's when between 91 and 92, I started working with Phil and doing the active isolated stretching and the strength training program, which is the Wharton method, as they then evolved to calling it. And that really changed me as a runner, because before that I wasn't really able to handle the workloads required, and definitely not the linear workloads. But when I started doing active isolated, and Phil, really influenced me on that and taught me that, and really became like my therapist and my coach in that realm. And that's when I was really able to make the breakthrough, because I was able to stay healthy enough from using the active isolated methodology, stretching, and the isolated work with the strength training. And that's where I was able to really, as an athlete, make a breakthrough. Basically went from an 838 PB to down to 816 in one year, because I was able to train at that next level that was required to make that breakthrough. But that all happened because I learned the Wharton methodology. So from that point on, that became a staple of who I was as an athlete. And then it became a staple of who I became as a coach along the way, because of that influence. And because of being with Phil and Jim and working with them as an athlete, I then transitioned after retiring as an athlete, because I tried out in 92 for the Olympic team, tried out in 96, tried out in 2000, missed it in 92 and 96, as everyone knows, by one spot. But, in 95, I made the world championship team. 97 made the world championship. 98 made the cross country world championship. And then in 2000 had a good run at it again as well at 34 years old. And all of that happened because of the influence of Phil and Jim Morton on me and the methodology that I was using. And there's just no way around denying that. So, so after I retired in 2000, kind of got out of running per se. I ran for myself and I kept in shape and I still continued to work with the Whartons and worked with a lot of runners and distance runners and all kinds of people in the population, from just your everyday, person to everything. So anyway, that as far as coaching, that really, the Wharton methodology, and that allowed me to kind of learn the physio and really understand the physiological and biomechanical and muscular requirements to be a good distance runner or mid-distance runner and sprinter, because there was sprinters that worked with Phil and Jim as well, like Dennis Mitchell and so many guys along the way. Back then, even Michael Johnson was influenced by guys. There was so many athletes that they influenced at the time and continue to, because you go to a track meet and you still see the ropes, people using rope and using active isolated methodologies. And that was all due to Phil and Jim taking it to running and distance running and affecting a tremendous amount of people across the globe, really, with that. But for me, it was, just became a staple for me. And then working with them until 2014, that really, influenced who I was as a therapist, because that's really how I started out. I mean, I was an athlete, but I was and a coach, but I kind of was more geared towards being a therapist for many athletes. I mean, I had great opportunities to be around elite level running. And the big thing was when I started with Frank Gagliano in 2009, when we started the New Jersey, New York Track Club, when he moved back east. And then we developed that New Jersey, New York Track Club into a real powerhouse team. And I was really the therapist and kind of biomechanical guy who tried to keep everybody healthy by using the methodology and then other resources, of course. But I was the guy who was in charge of trying to make sure everyone stayed in the game, and then coach specifically any steeplechasers that joined our team. And that was my group to coach as well. And so, over those 10 years, which really went from 09 to 2019 or 2020, really, I was very directly involved with every level of coaching and that. And so that's where I really got to learn more at that level of the requirements of, what it takes to be at the elite level in mid distance and distance, all the way up to the marathon, really, because I had opportunities to work with all levels of athletes. So Frank, Gagliano and Matt Sanchowitz, who was my coach at the time when I was running, those guys had a tremendous influence on me as an athlete. Post-collegiately, I was able to, learn a lot from Gags and Matt as well. And then always, trying to stay on top of like what the changes were, what was happening, because Gags' method was really tried and true through. Gags wasn't like a science guy, but he was really learned by watching other coaches, talking to other coaches, learning from other coaches, and developed one of the most successful mid-distance training programs in the country and in the world. And so I was able to be around that for many years. And then when John joined us, I think I don't know if it was 15 or 16. I forget when John joined the team like fully. Maybe it was 16, 15 or 14. I'm not quite sure when it was. And then, John and I worked together for many years with New Jersey, New York Track Club, and then, moved on to the Empire Elite Group. And, we worked together there for 4 years, really. and anyway, but so John also influenced my coaching, and we learned a lot from each other, and we were always pushing the limits in different ways and trying to understand what was happening around the world, and how people were improving. And I think you have to really stay on top of what's happening. Because there is a lot of research out there, and you can study the research, and you can read and study the research. But to me, I look at the results, not the results of research. And who are the coaches that are getting results, you
Mm-hmm.
know, from applying what they're doing? Because they may
Yeah.
read me. There's so much out there now, as far as research and information, through the internet, and mainly the internet, right, and everything else that we get from the internet, and that, there's so much to kind of sift through and understand, like, what is this research, what is driving the research, what is the objective of the researchers, what are they trying to do, are they trying to sell something, or are they trying to have a set goal before they even start the research of what they want to prove?
Yeah.
And so you really have to look at the data, you have to look at the research, and then you have to say to yourself, you know, who's getting results from this? And
Yeah.
then the results they're getting as well, you have to then dig even deeper and, like, is it just that they're getting the results from? You know, because everybody's, I don't say everybody, a lot of people, in that kind of world are trying to get notoriety or,
Yeah.
credit for certain breakthroughs, right? And so you really do have to be careful of what the motivation is of all that, and then decipher it, and try to get through that and understand it, entirely,
Yeah.
before you because the athletes that we're all working with, they have, and at this level they're sacrificing a tremendous amount. So you don't want to sacrifice anybody's time, because that's all they have, and an opportunity by, oh, that sounds like a great idea, let's do that. And then, you're doing that for a couple months. Oh, that's not working, okay, let's do this. Oh, okay, that's not working, let's do this. And now, next thing you know, you wasted a year reaching for
Especially,
something that
yeah.
maybe isn't going to make a difference, right? So
Especially in New York, was so expensive, where it's hard to get resources for anything in New York. I can even
yeah,
probably relate to this, being from New York and having coached in New York. How frustrating it must be.
well, I mean, I gotta tell you, I mean, having moved around now and moving around and talking to people, all over the country, um it's expensive everywhere relative to where you are, right? And so New York is expensive, but I mean, when I moved down here, I realized, Atlanta's just as expensive as New York when it comes to housing. You wouldn't think that, but Atlanta's exploded. This city has exploded, and you
Yeah.
know, uh, we had guys in New York that were able to figure out ways to kind of get some inexpensive rent, and you can swing it. Not when it's inexpensive for New York when you put like four guys in a two-bedroom, right? But but
Yeah.
but I think that the thing is yeah, there is a cost to all of that, as far as,
Yeah.
like, especially at certain levels, and you know um in New York. And for whatever reason, that was part of the reason I moved and had took the opportunity with the Atlanta Track Club, was is it was difficult for John and I to continue and to sustain, with two coaches, to be able to sustain what we were trying to do with Empire Elite, because you know we were both, taking a little bit of a salary, based on what we were earning, what we were trying to, raise funds for the club, because we wanted to pay ourselves something. It was hard to do, as a charitable endeavor, right? And so realize that, having two people, that means you have to raise twice the amount just for that portion of it. And I felt like, that was, difficult for the club in a lot of ways. And then this opportunity came up, and I thought to myself, this is a great opportunity for
Yeah.
me, but also knowing that John and his ability and what he was doing and what the club could do without necessarily two coaches and two coaches' salaries, and that, going forward, that it would make sense for me to do this. And I didn't want to leave New York, really, but this opportunity came to work with a great club here in Atlanta and great athletes. And, it was a tough decision, but I put my name in the hat, and then it worked out that I was selected to move forward with the team. And, it was a tough decision, but it was really a great opportunity as well, for not just for me, but, for everyone. But anyway, so as far as the coaching is concerned and the influences, I consider myself lucky to have had the opportunity to work with great coaches and knowledgeable coaches along the way, and
Yeah.
learn from them. And it's really influenced who I am as a coach, and then also it's given me this opportunity that I have now.
Yeah, and I have to credit you because you wanted to introduce me to the Wharton method, active
Right.
isolation. You introduced it to me at Penn in '96, and then I got
Yeah.
certified by them in '98. I've been doing it for 25 years. So,
Right.
and it's like gospel to me. I do it every single day. So,
Hmm.
and as a not only a former competitive runner, but I'm also a 2 decades long martial artist. It's been so instrumental into keeping me healthy in a lot of different ways.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I mean, we're having worked in the clinic. We see it's applicable to everybody. We had
Yeah.
we had Mr. G, the weatherman. We had so many people there of all shapes of world. Like
Yeah.
we were fixing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Scoliosis,
Jim and Phil and their clinic there really helped
unbelievable.
so many people, and influenced so many people in a positive way with that. I mean, Aaron Matty's, he was the
Yeah,
father of the method, but Jim and Phil just took it and got it out there, and in the running world, especially, and in athletics, in a different way. And you can't deny that, but yeah, it was really influential, and still is. I mean, obviously, but those guys, the way they did it was something. Jim put his heart and soul into it, and Phil, and they were able to, especially in New York. I mean, they would go to the running school, and 700 runners, 700 high schools every summer would learn that for 40 years if you went back. And by the time you left there, everyone knew that
hmm
method. And so, over the years, when you add up those numbers, there's a lot of people.
yeah,
Um, and they did so many of those kinds of events, camps, and
yeah.
everything else. And so,
I was
yeah,
with them. I was with them with you at the trials in 2000. We were out,
right.
and these guys did it out of a sense of service and a sense of love. I've never seen more selfless care of athletes and people. Um,
Hmm.
I think it's filtered to all of us. And like you make a great point earlier is that you learn from all these people. And as a longtime martial artist, one of the things we never stop being is a student, and even as a
Hmm.
coach, we never stop learning, right?
Hmm.
No matter
Right.
who it's from. You can learn from athletes, you can learn from students. It doesn't really matter. And
Right.
being willingness to learn, and that's being an effective communicator and being willing to listen can't
Hmm.
hurt. It's only helping us grow as coaches and physiologists and athletes. So it's a
Hmm.
testament to what we learn and who we learn it from.
Yeah.
So and and to your point too, like was that? I mean, is it a tough thing to do? Because I just thinking about. I was talking to my buddy Mike Hernandez about this, and there are so many runners who are let's just say 4:15 milers as men or 4:40 miles as women who kind of fall through the cracks who can't latch on to a team after college.
Hmm.
How do you how do you how can we get those folks to develop? And then they still want to run. How can we
Yeah.
get access for those folks? Because I feel like this you could probably get 20 guys that run 14:30, but we don't really have the resources to coach these guys. But every now and then one of them might turn into a 13:30 guy or whatever. Like
Yeah.
how do you do that? I think it's a frustrating part as a coach. And I was talking to Mike earlier about this, and you could probably relate to this too. It's just that's a tough thing to do.
It is, and that was one of the things that was really nice about Empire, and even New Jersey, New York, back in the day. I mean, with that level of team, sometimes it's you can only with the resources, especially like Empire Elite has, you can only carry a certain amount of athletes, and John and I would always say, like, if guys were like, "Hey, I'm interested in coming, training with you guys," we're like, "Hey, Tuesdays, 9 o'clock, we're at Master School. Friday, 9 o'clock, we're at Master School." You know, you want you want to come up there, Come, you want to move to New York? We'll try to help you find a place to live. You want to come there? You want to train? We're going to be there. If you're willing to make that sacrifice, it's hard for a lot of people to do that unless you have a job, or some way to support yourself. That was kind of a cool thing about like remote work that really changed, things with the way people work, is that there was a little bit more flexibility, in the traditional of, you got to be at a desk 9 to 5.
Yeah.
I think changed that for like a lot of young people, they're transitioning from like college to, to the workforce and that kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, people have to support themselves, right? You just went to college for 4 years, you go live out of a garage, and share a room with 4 guys. Like, who wants to do that, right? That's like, and your parents are like, wait a minute, I just paid like, you just paid $200,000 for an education. You're gonna go live in a garage with 4 guys and try to train, like, but the passion and the knowledge for guys like, John and myself, and Gags was the same way. He would love to get a hold of a guy that was just willing to do the work, show up, be no nonsense, not cause any distraction, that kind of thing, and just go to work. Yeah, and there's a need for that, absolutely, because everybody's on not everybody's on the same trajectory to reach a goal that, is really difficult. It could take, I always use examples of 2 steeplechasers I coached over the years. Both were with New Jersey New York Track Club for a while. One that's continuing, both that it can still continue, is like Travis Mahoney and Isaac Updike. These guys weren't like top recruits out of college, but they were willing to make some big sacrifices. Like Travis Mahoney, he lived with his parents for a long time. I mean, it was the kind of thing that he was willing to sacrifice, and not have to pay rent. And he was like coaching high school, and he wasn't making a lot of money, but he sacrificed by living with his parents and continued to run. Yeah, did it? He was like an eight. I want to say he was an 830 guy out of college, and it took us like 8 years from to break 820. Got down to 818. But it was a long progression, and that's just the thing. Some people need many years of training to make that breakthrough. Same thing with Isaac. He was an NAI guy out of Eastern Oregon, I think it is. I forget what it was, but it took him a long time to get where he was going. I mean, when he came to us in was it 17? He was an 826 guy, and it took us 4 more years to get him down to 818, but, and then last year, I think he ran 817, and we got him down to 817 right before he moved, and he got to deal with our Docks guard to train in Flagstaff, and he's running with them now. And now at 32, I think he just ran a 355 and 743 for a 3K. But there's a trajectory for a lot of athletes that's not like a sharp, grade up. It's it's here, and then it's up. It's here, and then it's up. And as we know now more about endurance takes many years to accumulate. It's not necessarily how old you are, but it's many years. And I've learned that as well. Now, if you look at some of these younger athletes that are beginning to make some incredible breakthroughs at younger ages, like the kid from Australia that's now just ran 333, and he's like, what is he, 17 or 18 or something? And then when you look at what Ingebrigtsen did, and those guys, but those guys have been running mileage and running and training at high levels for a long time, and doing threshold work for many years. It's not necessarily the age, but it's the amount of work that you can put in. Obviously, there's some talent level involved with those guys, right? But just generally speaking, it takes a tremendous amount of aerobic layers of strength over many years, and that's why it's like a trajectory up, because you gotta build that over years, that aerobic capacity. It's not something that comes naturally to a lot of people, and then it's also something that can be built on over many years. And so, if you like you're saying, if you can get a hold of some of those guys, those 1340 guys, because nowadays, what's fast is changing. And there's a lot of reasons for that. You know, it's the
Yeah.
shoes. It's the shoes are changing a lot. The technology, the methodology of training and what's being done is changing that as well. But the shoes are training it, and the shoes aren't training it just because you can run faster. It's not just that. It's not that it just makes you faster. It's that you can do more work faster without it breaking you down.
Yeah.
That's just all there is to it. Like you can, and I had an example of the aha moment. When it first happened, I knew it made you faster, but I didn't understand that it also allowed you to train faster without um, causing injuries and things like that. Like, because just the level of speed that you can, or the pace that you can cover and not break down your body as much is what really is making a difference as well. And I'll give you a perfect example of something that happened last year at Empire. We did 3,400s one day, and it was a good pace. It wasn't threshold. I mean, maybe it was. It might have been threshold for some people, but the only really way to know if it's threshold is to test, is to do lactate testing and really understand, like, are you really threshold? Because it's hard to do on a perceived exertion, because everybody can have different abilities with that as well. So they did 30 quarters, and the 3,400s, so we call them 30 quarters. That's an old school term, but 3,400s on like 45 or a minute's rest. And they were going to wear spikes the whole time. And I was like, guys, you can't wear spikes. This is crazy. You're going to get banged up. You know, we won't be able to walk for days. You know, like, this is crazy. We can't do this, you know? And they're like, no, it's fine. It's fine. I'm like, no, we're not doing it. They're like, no, really, trust me, trust me. I'm like, all right, we're going to check halfway through, see how you guys are doing. Get halfway through, they're fine. Do the whole workout, they're fine. Afterwards, I'm like, how you guys doing? You doing all right? All right, check in with me tomorrow. Make sure you're okay. Everyone was fine. That's just different. There's just no way you could do that. Back in my day, if you ran 12 quarters or 15 quarters in the spikes that we had, you wouldn't be able to walk. I mean, after races, a lot of days, I wouldn't literally be able to walk because of the design was, different, right? So now, because of the way that plate works and the way it can cantilever, your knee comes up because of the way the mechanics work with the shoe, it just preserves the lower leg. Gives it more speed and gives it more endurance, and then also gives it less wear and tear. So if you can train faster with less wear and tear, that means you can do more.
Yeah.
Right. And if you can do more, you can get better. Right. And so like you're talking about, that trajectory of doing more volume, more at a better pace, more volume at a better pace, it's just a trajectory up. Right. And so that's what we're seeing now. So not just the changing of methodology of training, but also the technology of the footwear is definitely influencing how much people can do and the speed at which they can do it, right? Because if you want to get fast, you got to run faster.
Yep.
Right? And if you want to get faster, you have to be able to run more volume faster. And then that makes you have more endurance at a faster pace. It's pretty simple, right? It seems like simple, right? But that's all it is, and that's what's happening now. But to the point of that, and I'll tell you a good story. Is like Travis actually came out of retirement because of the shoes. He was going to retire, Travis Mahoney, but he realized, I can't do this now. I could do all this work, and I could do double threshold with the shoes on. I wake up the next day, I'm not even sore, even at 32 years old. So it's like, what am I doing? Like, I got to go see if I can break 1320. I got to go see if I can break 740. I'm going to go see if I can break, 815 in the steeplechase. Because there were a lot of guys that retired just before that, and then, like, they regret it. It's like, man, I just missed that. I missed out on that. You know what I mean? So it's definitely a thing. If you there's just a lot of naysayers out there and things about with the shoes, but it is what it is. And if you try to deny it, it'd be like, I compare it to the guys that, like, used to run on dirt tracks, and then when the rubber tracks came out, they were like, oh, well, that was on a dirt track. We did it on a dirt track. I was like, all right, well, they're on dirt tracks. Like, it's the same thing with shoes. It's just different, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, but the ideas of what we think is fast doesn't really matter.
It's
right?
true.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you think is fast.
kind of makes
I
makes
tell
you kind of go over distance too. Like you're going to go over distance with long threshold reps early in the season. Like you can go get a lot of volume in, even if you're a middle distance runner, and
Mhm,
serve the body in a way that's
mhm,
not torn up.
mhm.
How the
Yeah,
hell do 8 times a mile, 10 times a mile? Well, we did. Shoes, soft
mhm,
surfaces, a combination of things. We're able to do that now. Whereas before, you'd be like, "You're a miler. You can't be doing it that time." You can
mhm.
actually.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can, and you can do it twice a day nowadays too, and that's what the double threshold allows you to do along with the shoes and the shoes really do make a difference to do it, but also it's doing it with the testing and doing it in a way that is not over threshold,
Mm-hmm.
which is the most important thing. And so if you could tell me that you could run or you could back in any day, like, but just even now, like, let's say you can do 10 miles worth of work twice a week,
Mm-hmm.
endurance work. Back in the day, we would already do 10-mile tempo, right? And if I told you, I compare it to this. If I told you you're going to run you're going to run 10-mile tempo twice this week, and then you're going to do it next week, and then you can do it the week after that. You're going to do 20 miles of tempo work each week. What do you think is going to happen to you? You're going to get destroyed, right? You're just going to be destroyed. Like it's just wait, I can't do that. I can't do 20 miles and then do a long run and the rest of my runs like on top of that. I can't survive that. But that's what double threshold is. That's
Mm-hmm.
what people are doing. You can do 20 miles of work that equals the same amount of aerobic benefit in a week
Mm-hmm.
and be fine, not be banged up at all because of the shoes and because of the way you can do it. So,
Yeah.
and that's what you're seeing in the mile and all the distances above it. And that's where the benefit is. That's where the benefit of that kind of work is.
Yeah.
In the 800, you can do threshold. You can't really do double threshold. You can do threshold, but only to a certain degree is it really going to help you in the 8. That's why you're not seeing these. And then also with the shoes, like you're not seeing these massive drops in the 800 as you are seeing in the mile and in the 3K steeple and in the
5K.
5K and the 10K and the marathon, because the shoes and the methodology of training it just hasn't changed. It's the same kind of in the 800. It hasn't been able to influence the 800 as much, and you can even see in the 800 it's not dropped like it has in the other events, because that kind of training just doesn't benefit those guys, right? I mean, you're not going to start doing double threshold with 800 guys. Like what do you need that for, right?
Yeah.
So you can do threshold, but that's only going to give them the endurance. It's only one small part of what they got to do in the 800. So
You got to do max work too, I'd imagine, right? 3K pace and 5K pace for the half milers.
yeah, yeah,
Degree,
and you
just
got
fast
to do, yeah,
pace.
you got to do that stuff as well. So you can't really. So anyway, but like the influence in the technology and methodology hasn't really affected the 800 as much as you can see it has in the mile, 5K, and
It's true.
the other events.
It is
But
true.
who knows what will be the next thing, and there are some 800 coaches that have really cracked the code, and they have like a lot more consistent results, but it hasn't really, like, nobody's, we don't see like 10 guys running 141 or 140 or anything like that. Like it's kind of leveled off, right?
Yeah.
Which is interesting to see, and also, try to figure out how to get there, with what we know, now.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, how similar would you say half mile that type of progression is for mile progression? There are a lot of similar, same meat and potatoes of the training.
Nah, it's different. It is during certain times of the year, but you just can't. Half miles just have to run so much faster, and
Yeah.
that's where you see like a difference, and you even hear it in the conversations with the coaches. It's like half milers, you can say, well, that guy's really like a 4.8 guy, right? And that guy's like more like a 8.15 guy coming down, right? So here's the middle. That guy he's like an 8:15 guy, and this guy over here, he's more like a 4:8 guy.
Mm-hmm.
He can run 45 for the 400, right? But are you going to make that guy that can run 45 for the 100 run 10 times a K? No
Exactly.
way. He's gonna be wrecked, right?
Yeah.
He's not gonna be fast anymore. But but you could take this guy that's a 15 guy that also can run the 8, right? And have him do that, and then he can drop down. But like, so there's no real there's not one guy that like in a one type of training that can really you can say is that's how you should do it. Like that guy over there, he may need more of the endurance work and then get faster. That guy over there, there's no way he's gonna do, because you think of it as you think of a thing like what's his name? Whiteman, the world champion from
Yeah.
in the 1500 from 2 years
Awesome.
ago.
Yep.
I mean, the guy already won 143,
Yeah.
right?
He's got wheels.
I mean, he's got wheels, right? But he's a guy he's got wheels, but he's a guy that like he can't run 45 in the 400, right? He has to run it. He has to run it even, right? But he's got to run it even. But he'd still ran 143.
Yeah.
But he's a guy that has to go out and do double threshold. I mean, he's probably doing threshold and some double threshold. But you take a guy like Will Sumner, he's not going to do that. He can't do that. It'd just be
Yeah.
destroyed. It'll be wrecked. And so, that's one thing that I was able to learn, and Gags had like a way to say, he used to have this saying, take strength and speed and mix it in a bowl. And never really just take one of those ingredients out all year long. You just gotta keep mixing them in the bowl.
Mm.
You can't do one and then not do the other. But
Mm-hmm.
then you also have to find a way to kind of like slowly do both, right? In the 800. Because if you do too much of one and not the other,
Yeah.
you can't all of a sudden start to try to do the other, because then you'd get too far behind, or if you try to do too much of one and the other, then they
Yeah.
get hurt. So it's a
Yeah.
really the 800 is definitely a tough code to crack based on the athletes that can do the event.
It is tough. It is.
Um,
This is
so
Carl Torch, by the way.
it's
Carl.
really like trying to find the athlete
Yeah.
and what makes them who they are as an 800-meter runner.
Yeah. And I think this is where a lot of this coaching with the eyes is just as important as coaching with the stopwatch too. Figuring out, is this guy with dear life to this other guy who's comfortable?
Yeah,
Like, do I make modifications to the training because of that?
right.
Because of what I'm seeing. By the way, this is Carl Torch. He's the distance coach for Christian Brothers Academy,
Mm-hmm.
CBA. So welcome, Carl.
Hey, Carl.
They got a killer distance program at CBA over there in Lincroft, New Jersey.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Very successful. Very, very good.
Yeah. I mean, but that's like the type of stuff. Like, if you see like you do 5-6 times a K for your middle distance crew, right? Are people rolling, or are people slowing down at some point in the workout? At what point do you need to make adjustments to the training? This is where I think, to me at least, I religiously take notes so I can go back and refer and say, okay, this worked, this didn't work. When did it stop working? I don't need to make any modifications, right? Does this guy need a little bit more speed? This guy need a little bit more strength on the back end? Like, it allows you to make adjustments in the training as you feel it's appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it is true, there's a lot of online coaching and technology nowadays, and I use it. I use Final Surge. I think it's fantastic. It's great for data points. But I was just talking to, the high performance director at Atlanta Track Club today, and at the track that we use, which is Cheney Track. It was the former Olympic warm-up track.
All right.
It's right near the old Olympic Stadium, which is now owned by Georgia State University. But that track we use, they put in like some GPS technology where there's a tracker you can wear, and it can it can get every 100 meters, every 10 meters, it can get your splits. Get 10-meter splits, especially in the last 100. It's actually 10-meter splits for the last 100 and 100-meter splits for everything else. And it's going to cost like some ridiculous number to upgrade the technology and really use it. Because right now I don't use it. I just use a stopwatch, right? And like we do gear change workouts, like where we hit the last 60 meters, and we put cones out and we change gears, right? And we can see the gear change, and like you're saying, you put eyes on guys, and like I don't really need to see that. I
Hmm.
mean, I don't need to see it in data. I need to
Yeah.
see it. I can see what's happening.
Yeah.
Um, and then I could go back and look at data and like, all right, I can see some of the stuff there, but that's not going to show me what a guy's head was the last 20 meters,
Hmm.
Like if he's, if he's if he's good, and then all of a sudden I tell him to hit a gear change and his head is back here, like, depending on the athlete, like it probably doesn't make sense, that level of gear change that he's making or trying to make, right?
Yeah. So
Because
true.
biomechanics, with that kind of top end speed work that you're doing with 800, I mean, it matters for everybody, but you can see the breakdown, in stride length and all these kinds of things, which is what we work on. Like the most important thing to me is that, is stride frequency and stride length, and like trying to be most economical for each person. And you can see when there's a change in that. And so most of the work that we do now with the 800 group is to maintain that
Hmm.
in all the workouts. And there's no reason to try to run faster if you can't,
Exactly.
because as soon as you cross that barrier of inefficiency, then you're losing speed, right? So the idea is to try to progressively get faster without losing that ability to generate power and get your foot down, and and not get what I call, let's not have a yard sale, let's not get ugly, where like there's like clothes all over the track, like, because then what's the point?
Yeah.
And there'll come a time when I need the athletes to go there, but not very often in training, because then we're just being inefficient, and like inefficiency to me is like the breakdown in training.
Yeah. And,
Um,
and you're building them to the point where they're gradually in a position where they can get there when they need to get there. It's not
mhm,
like you're taking a quantum leap from C to S and you're skipping all
mhm,
the steps in between. I think it's
mhm.
a gradual build up for them, right? You know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It has to be progressive, and especially depending on where the athlete's coming from. Like I was talking about, like a guy like Zalen, who we were talking about up in New York, like,
Yeah.
and even a guy like Ben Allen. When you look at Ben Allen, what he's been able to do, you know, that's 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 almost 4 years, 4 years of progression.
Hmm.
That didn't happen like, you know, and some of it was he was ready to do last year, but it was also believing that he could do it. That was a huge thing with him, is belief and confidence, because he was coming from such a, on a 407 miler, right? And he's now on 353, and he's probably going to run 351 this weekend, in my opinion, or faster at the
Oh.
Armory. They're going to set up a race this weekend to run 350 in the Armory, or
Ooh,
try to break 350. Um,
wow.
and Ben Allen ran 216 last weekend from the front. He had pacer for 3 laps, and the pacer was actually bad on the third lap, which messed him up. He probably could have run a lot faster. But the point is like Ben had the ability, and it took like a progression of like, um, exactly what we were talking about. Is like, it wasn't, he didn't push beyond like getting ugly,
Hmm.
because like you can't get from point A to point B, just like this straight up, right? There's
Yeah.
got to be a progression to it. Um, you know, and it depends where they're at, right? And where their starting point is, and then what their ability is as far as like what their speed is and what they're capable of doing and what they've done in that training. And then you can based a progression on that.
Mm-hmm.
And some people just have a better top end. Ben has a real natural top end speed, so it was a little bit easier for him to get to where he was going. He just had to work on the speed endurance and the endurance part, which he was able to, which he was, John was having, and John and I had him doing over the years, and now John is just really, this year is really adapted to it even more, and that's why he's been able to make these breakthroughs. And it was the same thing with Luciano, who's down here with me in Atlanta now. Luciano was a 149.8 guy, and when he first came to Empire, we told him, he just said, "Can we come out?" I was like, "Sure," but for the first couple months, you're just going to pace Johnny. If you can pace Johnny in all these workouts and then hang on to him for some of it, then then we'll give you that, and you see what you can do this year. So for the first 4 months, he came in like March. He just paced Johnny for the whole spring, and I think he ran then he wound up running like 149 mid that season, and then the next year he ran 148 low, and then he broke through at the end of the season. The next year ran 146 high. And then he did the same thing last year, and now he's ready to go. Now he's ready to go down to 145 this year. But that was a progression. But you can see it in the training and what he's been able to do, consistently. But again, like, it goes back to the point of, like, there was three guys. There's three guys right there. Like you said, they nobody knew who they were. Ben Allen, he was like a Division II guy, a 343 Division II, 343, 149 half miler from Minnesota. But
Yeah.
John saw him, saw how smooth he was, saw his ability, convinced him to move here. We had patience and just kept bringing him along, and the guy just ran 2:16.6.
Unbelievable.
Just like, that was the kind of thing where, like you're saying, it was just, he had the desire to do it. John and I had the patience, and John had the patience, and not only the patience, but the vision that he knew what his potential was. And we saw it every day in practice. We saw what he was able to do. It just was a matter of him believing that he could do it, and then continuing to stay healthy and on a progression that allowed him to do it.
It makes a lot of sense. I'm not going to keep you too much longer, but I want to ask you, like, there's certain things that you look for. Like, what type of progressions are you looking for middle distance runners and distance runners? Like, as coaches, these are some of the things that I'm always trying to get better at and trying to learn. So
Mhm.
any insight would be, greatly welcome and greatly appreciated on that regard. I mean, I'm always looking for a gradual progression too, and a balanced program as well. But are there certain things that you think I should be looking for, or other coaches should be looking for, to just to say, okay, this guy and this girl's progressing. They're heading in
Yeah.
the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you write a program that is, I'm a big believer in I'm a big believer in underestimate and overachieve, right? So when I write workouts, I sit back and I like to say, what do I think they can run? Okay. What I think they can run doesn't really matter, right? Like, it's like, what can they run?
Yeah.
So, right? So let's find out, right? So if you think a guy can run 420 in a mile, you're not going to write workouts that are, 410 workouts, right? Like, I mean, is that going to really get him there? Or just like all of a sudden saying, okay, you're gonna run, you're gonna run 62s 10 times a quarter and 62 today, because I think you can run 410. Why don't we write workouts that are like, 425 workouts, and then just tell them, let's just see how you feel, right? Let's
Mm-hmm.
go out and see what you can do. Just start out at 66s, and let's progress from there, right? And so like, undershoot, overachieve is a big thing that I'm a believer in, because you
Mhm.
know how the mind can be, right? And if
Yeah.
you and then also, like, if you just take that out of the equation, sometimes you see better results. I mean, I did that today with like and I tell the athletes all the time, like, here's the workout, this is what I wrote, but it's freaking windy today, and it's 20 degrees colder than we thought it was going to be. So, what I think you should be able to do and what we can do today is two different things. But let's slow it down and let's see what we can do, and allow athletes to kind of succeed, right, and gain confidence. And then once you kind of get an idea of what they can do by not overshooting, because I think the biggest mistake most people do is they overshoot. If a kid is motivated, like, a lot of times, if they're not motivated, like, I don't even know how to deal with that, right? Like,
Yeah.
like you could tell them, like, do you want to be here? If you don't want to be here, I don't want to be here with you either. But if you
Yeah.
want to be here and you want to do this, then let's do this, right?
Yeah.
And so once if they're motivated and they're inspired and you're inspiring them, let's not, let's not let them fail, right?
Mhm.
Let's let them succeed. So I think the biggest thing is to write the workouts to allow them to succeed. And that's hard sometimes, like, because you really got to, like, if you have a lot of athletes, you got to, like, okay, here's Johnny. He's a 420 miler and you got a 440 guy. I want you to work out with Johnny today. Is that going to work? You
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
it's hard as a coach to have 10 different watches, right?
Hmm.
But I mean, that's the thing. Like, sometimes you're just gonna have to take a guy and say, no, you got to go back here for a while. If you come up, great, but you go back here for a while.
Yeah.
You go back here for a while and you work your way up. You know,
Yeah.
if you can
You,
work your way up, then you belong in that group. But
you,
it can't be ugly either, right? It can't be falling out on the floor every rep. You know what I mean? Because then what's the point? But yeah, so I mean, I think that's a big thing is like understanding what the potential of the athlete is at that given time, at that given moment. I'll take an example. One of the athletes we had last year, she had mold poisoning last year. She was messed up for a year. She's a 158 half miler,
mm,
but she didn't run anything last year. She was unable physically to do anything, and she got banged up for a lot of different reasons because she was overreaching and over again trying to reach for something that wasn't possible. So every time she went and worked out, it was like 200%.
hmm
And then there was an expectation to do 200%. Like 200% is hard. It's hard to shoot for. So what I did was, as I said, let's just do what you can do. Okay, we're
hmm
gonna do threshold work today. Let's do 3 reps and then see how you feel. If you can't stay with them, slow down. But I
You
just
bring,
want you to feel good. I want you to feel good. I don't want you to, like, fall apart. And that took like 2 months of that. Bef-
and you
But
bring up a point too. Like I'll use the 10 by 400 workout because that's a common workout that Funk use. But again, people are building up to that point over time too. Like
Mhm,
you do 2 sets of 4 and then 8, then 2 sets of 5 and then 10. Like they might need to different ways to build up to that at some point, and not everybody can handle 10 times a 400 right off the bat.
mhm, mhm,
So, and how do you put those pieces of the puzzle together for these athletes?
mhm,
It's important too, like you said too, just adding, building towards, putting them in a position to succeed, and then building on that,
mhm.
right? And keeping them confident, keeping them motivated, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Um, and
And
that,
then and that's hard sometimes in some programs, college and high school, where you have a season, you have
yeah,
certain, but again, people can only do what they can actually physically do on a given day.
hmm
And that's what we can expect. And then if you're inspired on a race day or even on a workout day, you can do more. But if you're beaten down and you're defeated because you don't think you can do it, it's
hmm
probably not going to happen, you
hmm
know. But yeah, so it's sometimes there's only a certain amount of time that you have, and you can't change that,
hmm
where an athlete is, right? But if you have a long-term goal for them, you kind of just got to, like, be patient in that process. And a
hmm
lot of coaches and a lot of athletes aren't willing to do that. And you got to be realistic and patient and can't change that. And sometimes those are tough conversations to have with athletes is where they're at. And hopefully you have the time to get them where they're going. But if they're not willing to be patient, sometimes it's hard, you
It's
know?
true. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to put frosting on a cake when you haven't baked the cake yet.
It
You gotta
really
bake
is.
the cake.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a long time to build this freaking thing. Then you
Yeah.
put the frosting on, and that's what'll
Yeah.
get them to the next
You
level.
can't you can't turn it up to 500 and then cook the cake quick.
Yeah.
You still gotta keep it at the same temperature and weight, you
Yeah.
know?
It's just like a crazy analogy, but it makes so much sense.
I talk
So
about that all the time with my athletes. This is like, you gotta think about like being a chef, and there's certain ingredients and a certain amount of time to do things. We can't change that,
no.
I put seed in the ground, you can't just expect it to sprout the next day.
Yeah.
Like, so,
Yeah.
you know?
It's like my cousin Vinny, the instant grits. It takes 10 minutes to cook instant grits in your oven, everybody else's oven. It's
Yeah.
it's it's this type of stuff where it's one of the things that's toughest to exercise is a semblance of patience with
Mhm.
competitive athletes and runners. We want stuff to happen quickly, right? But
Yeah,
it's a hard thing to do. It's testing your patience is not always the easy thing, but it's a really important thing to do.
it
And,
is. Entirely.
too, like in some situations in college, you don't have the luxury of time to do this stuff.
No.
It's
No, you
expectation.
don't.
You got to fill
Yeah.
out roster. You got to fill out budget. Like you got to offer scholarship. I get all that stuff. So if
Mhm.
you have a long term plan, it's definitely helpful if you can exercise that type of building block
Yeah,
uh,
it
over a
is.
period and build that freaking Lego castle.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and it's so true. Last thing I wanted to ask you, like, if you could share some pearls, like if you were to give any advice to a couple pieces of advice to runners and a couple pieces of advice to coaches, what would you encourage them to do? Like, just to stay locked in, for the next step.
Um, I think the big thing is that to have try to ensure the athletes that you know or teach them what you're trying to do, so they have an understanding of it. If they don't want to know, that's great too. Like ignorance is bliss, right? But I think the biggest thing to do is like this is just to have perspective sometimes of like what you're really trying to, what's the overall goal, right? And I have this thing where I'm like, this is just something we're doing, you know. Hopefully nobody's gonna die today, you know. you
Yeah.
know, it's really having perspective, even from a coaching standpoint, is like, what do you really want, from this, right? We want results, right? But in the end, like to keep perspective, like, and that we're all kind of like trying to teach these young people as coaches, um, not just how to run faster, but about life in a lot of ways and
Mhm.
what it means to you. What does this mean to you? Why are you doing this? What is your purpose? You
Mhm.
know, why do you want to do this? And was this an expression for yourself? Is like what do you why are you doing this? And then also keeping it in perspective of why you're doing it. I think the biggest thing, you got to do is take away that part and the experience that you're going to have with it. And when the experience we're going to have together, let's really enjoy this, man. Let's have
Yeah.
fun. I don't like to use the word fun because it's a little cliche, right? Let's have an inspired experience about this whole thing. That's
Yeah.
my thing, when I watch you run, I want to feel inspired by what you're doing.
Mhm. At the end of the day,
Whether yeah,
why
what
you're
whether or not
talking.
you win the gold medal or you win the silver or like, there's
Mhm.
3 guys that run better than you this day. You wanna look back and then say, "Man, that was a great day for me. It wasn't enough, but it was a great day.
Yeah.
I gave everything I had and I was ready. Let's do that." You
Mhm.
do that, you walk away with your head hang high, you're not gonna be down and out, but let's do that. Let's just work towards doing something that's inspiring,
Mhm.
whatever that is for you. Some guys are just trying to look to finish in the top 50, right? Like, so, you can't compare that to the guy that's trying to win the thing, but it's just the same. It's the same
Mhm.
thing that the guy who got top 50 might inspire the guy who won. more than the guy who won, right? So that's what I try to, the X's and O's. There's so many ways to do it, right? And just try to find a good plan. But in the end, I think it's just like let's walk away and and really be inspired by what we did and how we did it together.
Yeah, man. At the end of the day, like I think in my perspective and experience too, like you want them to buy into your philosophy, your training, and so on, and you want
Hmm.
them to trust you, right? How do you do that? A great way of doing that is obviously results and letting
Hmm.
them know that you care and letting them know that you're there for them. Because sometimes, you can relate to this as coaches. Sometimes we're shrinks too to these
Oh
athletes.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, you think about how many kids were influenced by
wow.
mentors and coaches and that like that, and that's what you want to be.
Hmm.
Um, and
Multiple.
and if you do that, I think they're going to trust what you tell them to do. And in the end, like I said, there's a lot of different ways to do it, right? But if you have a pretty well thought out program and the kids are inspired by you or the athletes or whoever they are, adults, kids, young adults, if they're inspired by it, they're going to do great, you
Hmm.
know, because they're going to believe in like what you're saying because, they like they like what you're saying and they like the way you're saying it. And I'm not
Hmm.
saying you got to be their friend. I just think you got to create an environment where they want to go out and do something special,
Hmm.
you know?
And that's something I'll
And
always remember. I
yeah,
remember what Coach Tommy did for me. You
yeah.
know, I remember that time that I had some of my closest friends and even my wife I met through the sport. So
Mhm.
I'll never forget that experience I had with you
Right,
guys, right?
right.
You and Jim and Phil, like all these other guys, Jimmy Lynch, those guys, like
Yeah,
it's this stuff I'll never forget,
yeah,
never. And
yeah. I think that really is the most, to me, in the end, is the most important thing, as we can do as coaches, is there a certain workout or like a certain philosophy of training? And then, that's all going to change. It
mm,
might change. It might change, based on the athletes you have, but that other thing is the most important thing to
I,
me.
I agree.
Yeah.
You do
So,
right. You do right by your people. You treat them well.
mhm.
Um, and they'll never forget it.
Yeah.
Forget it. So, Tommy, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This is a enlightening talk. I mean, I hope you guys and gals that have been listening learned a lot as well. And it's important to get as many perspectives as we possibly can. And Tommy having experience, you know, training national class athletes and turning them into world class athletes, testament of great coaching. But he's also one of the most relatable people I've ever known. Regular dude. It's world class though. And that to me
Right.
is something I'll never forget as a coach. So that's one reason I wanted to have Tommy on here. Not only is he a world class coach and athlete, he's a world class guy, right? And it's
Thanks,
just
Jason.
stuff that's important memories.
Thanks.
So, and I won't forget it, man. And again, everybody's thanking you here. Marty Ogden, another legend in Connecticut. He has running camps. Jim Forte. Is that Jim Forte from McClancy? Was he in your years, Jim Forte?
Uh, my brain is a little mush when it comes to names. If he wasn't eating lunch with me, I might not remember.
Jim Forte,
All
yeah,
right, Jim.
guy.
Jim, what year? 1999. I wouldn't know Jim.
Oh,
Missed. I missed
he's
him.
between Tommy and myself.
I just missed him by 2 years.
Ah, all right, Jim. Well, good to see you, Jim. I think Jim's son runs for Mike Hernandez at St. Francis Prep. So
Oh, okay.
keep up the good work. And he's working with Mike now. Fantastic. But
All right.
Tommy, I can't thank you enough for coming on.
No
And
problem. Thanks for having me, and it's good to get back to New Yorkers and up in the Northeast, and still my home or my original home. I'm living here now, and Atlanta's becoming my home, but I'm still always going to be a New Yorker. And I can't
you,
lose my accent.
no, hell no. That's the most important accent in the world. No. Are you a Yankee fan or a Mets fan?
I'm a Mets fan.
Oh,
I'm a suffering Mets fan. I'm a suffering Jets fan.
I'm a,
Last season, last
I'm a,
season, I'm not recovered from the Jets season. I'm still going. I might need therapy. I don't
I,
know.
I always tell people we're only 20 guys away from being good, so we'll be all right. So, Jets,
As a Mets fan, you saying,
and
or
as
a
a Jet,
Jets fan? Okay.
The Mets,
Yeah.
I think, are going to be okay. They're
Well,
going to be
They got Diaz back. That was the kiss of death for them last year when they lost Diaz. So,
yeah,
um,
that was a
but they
rough
got
one.
a new coach, new season. It's just like the Jets. The preseason and the spring training is like for the Jets and the Mets fans, best time of the year.
Yeah.
We got all this hope, man. This
Oh
is
my,
it.
fire crazy. Are your wife and kids down in Atlanta with you?
Yeah, Kim is here and Ian is here. Catherine is living in our house up in New Paltz now, and she's going to be starting a new job next
Cool,
week. My daughter Brooke is been living and working up in Nantucket, but she's traveling right now.
cool,
And Ian is here training with us with the team. He's on the development team, and I was
nice.
able to get him. He's training. Broke 8 for the 3K a couple weeks back up in Boston, and it's boding well for his steeple this year. So
Good
we're
progression.
looking
Awesome.
forward to that for him and that. But yeah, my wife was able to work remotely, so yeah, it was cool. We're living in a town called Decatur, which is just kind of I guess a little town or city in Atlanta. But yeah, it's a great little town because it's all walkable. It's kind of like being in New York. We can walk down to the grocery store, walk everywhere. The Martyr is right here, so we really like it. It's nice.
Man. Fan,
So
please give him my best. I haven't seen. I'm the last time. It must have been the trials. I saw him.
yeah, well, maybe it's been a
Yeah.
long time. But listen, I got to get packing because I'm off to Glasgow tomorrow.
And best of luck to you guys at the
Got
World Champs.
got Yolanda Garambi is running for Sweden in 1500, and I think she has a really good shot to make the finals. So if you're tuning in, hopefully she makes it through. She's a great lady, and she went to the University of Vermont and has been here down in Atlanta for a long time. So she's been a pleasure to work with, and hoping to get her through to the finals to Sunday. So
Nice.
um, I'll be over there for the weekend.
Best of luck in Glasgow
Thank
and
you.
World Champs. And what's next for you guys in the spring season? Are you going to be out in the East Coast?
Uh, we're gonna go to we're gonna start our Raleigh relays, do some off distances for people, and then we may go to Wake Forest, and then the weekend at Penn there's a couple different meets going on, so we'll spread out Bermuda, Penn, and probably Drake, and
Nice.
then we will go to Albuquerque for a month for um, training camp, and we'll race probably in LA on the 18th of May, and then um, come back. When we come back, we'll go straight into Music City in Nashville, and then possibly up to New York um, um, for the Grand Prix meet on the 9th of June. So I'll be
That
up
I
there with
on
my
stage.
team. Probably take as many people as we can up for that. That'll
That
be
I
the last weekend to qualify for the Olympic trials. So
yes.
hopefully
Indeed.
we have the qualifiers all out of the way by then, but we may have a few that needed still. So
That Randall's Island?
it is. It's at Icon. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
So
cool. Very cool. I'll be at Penn with Mike, as I am every year. So if you're there, I'll let us say hi to you.
yeah, I'll probably be at Penn. I don't think I'll go to Bermuda or Drake, so I'll be at
Nice.
Penn.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, let me sign off, Jason and everybody's. Thanks for having me. I got to go get packed up and get ready for this trip. I appreciate
Always a pleasure, man.
the talk
Really.
here. All right,
Safe travels, my man. Good to
you
see you.
got it.
I'll talk to
Thanks,
you
man.
next time. All
Bye.
right. So that was Tom NOHILLY. Thank you again for coming, Jim Forte. I've heard so much about you, Jim Forte, McClancy. Carl, Coach, thank you so much as well for timing in as well. I will ask him the question you want about this goal setting session. I'll speak with him directly on the phone and text him. Sorry about it, didn't ask that. And someone else, Stephen Dorse, had a question on any tips to have on average mileage for a sub 3 hour marathon runner. It depends on where you're at now. I mean, take a look at if you haven't seen my sub 3 hour marathon training program. Um, I have a fully detailed plan that allows you to kind of build in and out your volume. And it really depends on what the volume you're currently at, and then allows you to kind of build gradually from there. So there's no particular for a sub 3 hour. If you can get over 20 miles for a long run at least twice, if you can get to the point where you can do a 15-mile marathon simulation run, a goal marathon pace about 5 weeks out, it's It's another key workout if you don't have access to a half marathon race. It's a good one. Speed farlex are good for the marathon, but simulate. I'll just say that, Stephen. If the marathon is rolling, try and simulate a lot of your workouts and long runs that are rolling hills. Get used to the pace change. If it's on the flat, and try to simulate a lot of your workouts and long runs on the flat. That'll help you in your way towards a sub 3 hour. But if you have any questions, anybody in here, blackbeltrunningcoach@gmail.com is my email. You know you're welcome to ask anytime you want. I'm always available to help out. Mike Hernandez, thank you so much. Marty Ogden, thank you so much. My brother man, Mike Wilson, love you guys. And have a great night, everybody. And thank you so much again, Tommy NOHILLY. Talk to you next time, guys.